Hello and welcome to this Python tutorial, and mostly welcome to part 1, Artificial Neural Networks. I'm super excited to start this part to eventually get to deep learning because this is one of the most fascinating branch of machine learning. Not only the most fascinating, but also the most powerful. You will see that we will build very powerful machine learning models which will be based on deep neural networks. And that is why today deep learning is used for many power demanding and highly compute intensive tasks, like for example computer vision in medicine. In fact, deep learning can be used for a variety of purposes, from making predictions or classifications for business problems, as what we're about to do right now, or for computer vision, like recognizing faces in pictures or videos, or even recognizing tumors in some brain images. And it is also used for recommended systems with the use of deep Boltzmann machines. But today, we are going to solve this business problem described by Kirill in the previous tutorial, and we are going to solve this business problem using artificial neural networks. So, as you understood in the business problem description, the problem that we're about to deal with is a classification problem. We have several independent variables like the credit score, the balance, the number of products, and based on these independent variables, we are trying to predict which customers are leaving the bank. So basically what we're about to do is a classification problem, and artificial neural networks can do a terrific job at doing this, at making that kind of predictions. Alright, so let's build our artificial neural network to solve our business problem, as usual the most efficient way. To do this the most efficient way, we need to install a special library, which is the Keras library, and that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. So as you can see here, I'm not only installing the Keras library, I'm also installing the Theano library and the TensorFlow library. So before we install these three libraries, I'm going to explain to you what they are. Alright, so let's start with Theano. Theano is an open source numerical computations library, very efficient for fast numerical computations, and that is based on NumPy syntax. But what is also great about this library is that it can run on not only your CPU, but also on your GPU. So as a reminder, a CPU means central processing unit, and it's basically the main processor on your computer that is used for general purpose, like general tasks that are not graphic tasks. And speaking of graphic tasks, there is another processor that runs computations for that, and this processor is called the GPU. So it's a processor for graphic purposes, exactly like the graphic card you have on your machine. And so in terms of power and in terms of computations efficiency, well, the GPU is much more powerful because it has many more cores and it's able to run a lot more floating points calculations per second than the CPU, and therefore the GPU is much more specialized for highly compute-intensive tasks and parallel computations, exactly as it is the case for neural networks. You know, when we are forward propagating the activations of the different neurons in the neural networks thanks to the activation functions, well, that exactly involves parallel computations. And same when the error is backpropagated in the neural network, well, that involves again parallel computations. Alright, so basically the GPU is a much better choice for neural networks, especially when you're building deep neural networks to do deep learning. But for simple neural networks, you can still use your CPU. Alright, so that's this Theano library that, by the way, was developed by a machine learning group of people at the University of Montreal. And now what about TensorFlow? So TensorFlow is another open source numerical computations library that runs very fast computations, and again that can run on your CPU or your GPU. This library was originally developed by the Google Brain team at Google and is now under the Apache 2.0 license. And the important thing to understand here is that these two libraries are used mostly for research and development purposes in the deep learning field. That means that if you want to use these two libraries for deep learning, you would use them to build a deep neural network from scratch. That is with many lines of code, which is great if you want to, do some research in order to improve the deep neural networks, invent and develop a new kind of deep neural network, or any other kind of deep learning models, but that would require a lot of lines of code. That is why, in this section, we are not going to directly use Theano and TensorFlow. We're going to use another library that in some way wraps the two libraries here, Theano and TensorFlow. And this library is, as you might have guessed, the Keras library. The Keras library is an amazing library to build deep learning models like deep neural networks in a very few lines of code. So we're still staying in the same spirit of this course, since we're going to build very powerful deep neural networks with only a few lines of code, and that is only thanks to this Keras library. This library was developed by François Chollet, a machine learning scientist, again at Google. Alright, so to summarize, Keras is a library based on Theano and TensorFlow. That means that it runs on Theano and TensorFlow libraries. And exactly as we use scikit-learn to build very efficiently machine learning models, we will use Keras to build deep learning models very efficiently. Great, so now let's install those three libraries. Okay, so there are several ways to install these libraries, and of course I'm going to give you the simplest solution. The solution I'm going to give you works on most systems, and if by any chance it doesn't work on your system, then don't worry, in the zip folder of this section you will find a document that will give you the instructions on how to install Theano, TensorFlow and Keras depending on your system. And besides, for those of you who are interested in installing TensorFlow on your GPU, well, you will also find the instructions on how to do that. But here, I'm going to show you the simplest solution, and it will get you installed Theano, TensorFlow and Keras in no time. So let's do it. The first thing we need to do is to open a terminal. And to do this, you have two options. The first option is to go to Tools on top of Spider, and then click on Open a Terminal. This will open the terminal, and you can enter the commands that I'm about to show you. And the second option, and this is the one I'm going to show you, is to open the main terminal on your machine. So since I'm on a Mac, I'm going to press Command plus Space to open the terminal. So here I'm typing terminal, press Enter, and here I am on the main terminal of my machine. Okay, so just so you know, I just uninstalled Anaconda and reinstalled it so that I can be just like you, that is, about to install Theano, TensorFlow and Keras for the first time. And now, I'm going to install Theano, TensorFlow and Keras in 3 very efficient steps. First step is to install Theano, and to do this, we simply need to enter pip, then install, then Theano, and press Enter. And this will install Theano, as you can see it, and already successfully installed. Perfect. Now, second step, let's install TensorFlow. So to do it, that's the same. Very simply, we do pip, then install, and then TensorFlow, spelled this way. All right, and then Enter. And here we go, collecting TensorFlow, and right now it's installing TensorFlow, so it's taking just a little more time, but here we go, TensorFlow is correctly installed. Perfect. And now let's install Keras, and as you might have guessed, this is going to be as simple. We do pip, then install, and then Keras. Here we go, and let's press Enter. Downloading Keras, and successfully installed Keras. So as I told you, we just installed Theano, TensorFlow and Keras in no time. So now the installation is done, but we need to do one last thing. It's to upgrade all these libraries to the most up-to-date version. And again, we're going to do this the most efficient way. The trick to do this in one shot, and this will upgrade Theano, TensorFlow and Keras at the same time. The trick is to do conda, then update, and then double dash, and then just all. Alright? And then we press Enter. And this will update everything, not only Theano, TensorFlow and Keras, but also everything in Anaconda, as well as Spider. And actually, this is all what will be updated, because as I just told you, I just reinstalled Anaconda, so it's like I'm installing it for the first time. And so here we just have to confirm and press Y, and then press Enter. Alright, and now it's updating everything, including Theano, TensorFlow and Keras. Alright, so it's taking a little while, but it's going to be over soon. And here we go, that's done. So now you have Theano, TensorFlow and Keras installed on your machine. Congratulations! And remember, for those of you who couldn't make this solution work, then don't worry, please go to the zip folder of this section and you will find some document with additional instructions on how to install Theano, TensorFlow and Keras for the different systems, Mac, Windows and Linux. Alright, so I'm going to close the terminal, because now everything is installed, we're ready to go. And now the first thing that we're going to do, and that must be done anytime we start making a deep learning model, is to set the right folder as working directory. So let's do it right now so that it's done and we can start already in the next tutorial. Okay, so to set the right folder as working directory, you need to go to File, Explorer here, and then find the Deep Learning A to Z folder. So this folder is available in the resources of this course. Make sure to download it, and for example, you can put it in your desktop as I did here. So first, let's start by opening this folder, and we see that it contains 3 subfolders. Get the Machine Learning Basics that contains 2 templates, the classification template that we'll use to create this first deep learning model artificial neural network, and the data preprocessing template that is a very useful template to preprocess any dataset. So for those of you who did not take the machine learning course, well, in the last section of this course, you will find the Get the Machine Learning Basics section, and you will find all the tutorials that explains how we make these two templates, the classification template and the data preprocessing template. Alright, so that's the first folder, and then we have our two main folders corresponding to the two volumes of this course, Volume 1 Supervised Deep Learning and Volume 2 Unsupervised Deep Learning. Okay, so of course to find the right folder we want to set as working directory, we need to go to Volume 1 because that's where we are. So Volume 1 Supervised Deep Learning, and we are now in Part 1 Artificial Neural Network. Okay, and just in the previous section you were with Kirill for the ANN intuition, and now you are in Section 4, Building an ANN, and this folder is exactly the folder you want to set as working directory. And why is that? It's for a specific reason. It's because it contains the dataset churn modeling, which is the dataset of our business problem. And then this folder contains other files, so you have the ann.py file, which is the Python file that we're about to make. By the way, make sure to create this new Python file and save it in this subfolder because you need to save your Python file in the working directory folder. That is the folder that contains your dataset. Okay, and then you have the classification template Python file that was taken from the classification template folder in this section, Get the Machine Learning Basics, because we will need this classification template to prepare efficiently our artificial neural network. So classification template. And then you also have this categorical data template, which we will use to deal with the categorical variables that we will find in our dataset churn modeling. You'll see that this dataset contains some categorical variables, and we will need to encode them in a special way. And so we will use this categorical data Python file to do it more efficiently. And then as promised, you have the installations instructions PDF that contains more instructions on how to install Theano, TensorFlow, and Keras in case the installation we just did didn't work for you. Alright, so that's the folder you want to set as working directory. And so to set it as working directory, you simply need to click on this tool button here and then click on Set Console Working Directory. Here we go. And now you have the right folder set as working directory and you're ready to start making your first deep learning model. So congratulations, we have some very exciting tutorials ahead of us and I can't wait to start. Until then, enjoy deep learning!